Excellent. Now, a little bit about our speaker. Dr. Carol Hargett is a professor, soft skills trainer, public speaker coach, and founder of CDH Education Incorporated. She has successfully taught over 15,000 students public speaking and other soft skills. She is a passionate educator devoted to helping others succeed personally and professionally. Students rave that she is engaging, caring, and thorough. The following quote by Nelson Mandela embodies her professional belief in education. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Dr. Hargett, take it away.
Thank you so much. And I just want to introduce you again to Deborah Pinnock. She is a very, very prolific trainer, and there are many programs that she has, and we're going to talk about those later because you may be interested in some of the work that she does. It's powerful, powerful stuff. So let's get started. Thank you so much for being here today and for hailing from all over the globe. It's wonderful to see you. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about what we accomplish or what we're about at CDH Education Inc. So we are soft skills trainers. We train soft skills to colleges, universities, organizations, and individual students. And so this year, we trained over 800 nurses at Broward College, soft skills training. We also provided over 400 students in what's called the TRIO programs, which is a program for first-generation students who want to be successful in college, and we did soft skills training for over 400 of those. And then in terms of the kind of work that we do on a regular, consistent basis, we use platforms like Teachable, Udemy, and Skillshare to deliver courses like public speaking, time management, financial literacy, online courses. And we have over 2,050 students in those right now. So I say that to say you are in good hands when it comes to being able to understand how to become a better and more effective public speaker. So what is this webinar about today? Why did you join? What is it that you want to know? Or what is it that you're spending your time to do, your busy Saturday? What are you looking for? Well, how to become an effective public speaker, correct? And you can put in the chat if that's why you're here. You want more tips or skills on how to become a more effective public speaker. And so we're going to talk about presentation skills today. And so what is it? What is it that people think about when they think about public speaking? What is it that when I say, okay, you have to get up to give a speech, what is it? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Do you feel like, wow, I think I can do this? Or are there other things going on? Would you put that in the chat? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about public speaking? Whether it's an interview or you're asked to give a presentation, Would you put in the chat, what is it, nervous? Yes? Thank you, Mary. Anyone else? Well, Mary, this is true. Most people report that they are fearful of public speaking. They have a fear. And as Deborah said earlier, the stats are really high in terms of people who report fear of public speaking. And Erasa says that she has to prepare herself a lot. Yes, we're going to talk about preparation. We're going to talk about that a lot because that's what it's all about. That is what it's all about. Practice, practice, practice. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So we're first going to talk about and address fear because that is the big white elephant in the room. It's the fear of public speaking. Yes. And so next, we are going to talk about shyness, because a lot of times shyness and fear of public speaking go hand in hand. Would you agree with me that shyness and public speaking go hand in hand? And we're going to talk about shyness, right? Absolutely. We're going to talk about shyness. And then the last topic we're going to talk about today is, can you give a perfect speech? Is there such a thing? So we're going to talk about that. So are you in the right place? Is this what you want to hear for this webinar today? Give me a thumbs up or put yes or no or yes. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Excellent. Thanks a lot. All right. So as Deborah said earlier, and I'm going to reiterate this because, my goodness, this is what people report, not just in the United States of America, but worldwide. 75% of women and 73% of men report fear of public speaking. It's that high. So, do you fear public speaking? If that's the case, then say yes or put it in the chat. Yes, I am fearful of public speaking. And don't be shy, because as you can see, there's a large percentage of women especially that report fear of public speaking. And the truth is in my public speaking classes or my courses, my online, yes, you become nervous, I understand. In my online courses, I find that more men than women sign up for public speaking, even though more women than men report fear. So I'm here to help you, and I hope that you understand the importance of becoming a more effective public speaker, and it affects a lot of the areas of your life. So we know that there's fear, and fear is going to be there. I hate to tell you that, but you're going to be fearful. It's fine. It's okay to be fearful, all right? But how do you deal with that fear? What is it that you do to get rid of? Or do you think you can? Do you think you can get rid of the fear of public speaking? Do you think that's even you can do it? What do you think? Can you get rid of the fear of public speaking entirely? Deborah said it correct. Mary said it correct. No, you cannot. Do you all know who Steve Harvey is? The comedian and motivational speaker. And he reports, Steve Harvey reports, that he always gets nervous whenever he has to face an audience. Ladies and gentlemen, the fear does not leave you, but I'm here to tell you that it's okay. Embrace that fear and do it afraid. And I'm going to teach you that doing it afraid is the way to go. Do it afraid. So, how do you do it afraid? Now, I want to show you, this is a small video. Please tell me if you can hear it, but this video will help you to understand how to overcome speech anxiety. And then we are going to talk about what you heard in the video. So it's a 4-minute video. And by the way, please stay until the end of the webinar because we have a surprise for you, a free gift. So watch this video. And let me know if you can hear it.
Do you have speech anxiety? If so, you're not alone. In fact, as much as 75% of the global population suffers from speech anxiety. It's one of the most common phobias, more common than fear of spiders. Some research suggests that it may even be more common than the fear of death. The late renowned communication scholar James McCroskey defined communication apprehension as the fear or anxiety associated with either real or anticipated communication with another person or persons. Speech anxiety is one form of communication apprehension. Speech anxiety symptoms may include avoiding talking in front of others, increased heart rate, stuttering, sweating, stomach pain, flushing of the skin, dizziness, dry mouth, feelings of unpreparedness, and forgetting words. What causes speech anxiety? Such anxiety can be caused by any number of factors: a fear of rejection or failure, general shyness, uncertainty, a lack of situational control, and not being prepared. Things we all confront every day. So, how can you minimize speech anxiety? Prepare, prepare, prepare. Preparation is the key to reducing speech anxiety. Ways to prepare include choosing a topic of personal interest where possible. This will increase your enthusiasm for the topic, making writing your speech more enjoyable and increase your level of confidence. Practicing your speech often, in front of a mirror with family and friends, or on audio or videotape. Dealing with surprises on the day of the speech will only increase your anxiety. Have backup copies of your speech and any accompanying presentation. Have a plan for any technology snafus, and know your audience. Visualizing success is a powerful tool in improving performance. Even successful athletes practice visualization. Visualize giving the speech successfully. Being realistic. Understand that mistakes will not ruin the speech. Public speaking is hard, even for those who do it regularly. Just keep practicing. To reduce stress on the day of your speech, get enough sleep the night before giving a speech. Exercise prior to the speech. Eat a healthy meal prior to the speech. Perform relaxation techniques such as deep breathing, tightening and relaxing muscles, clenching a stress ball, and visualizing success. Act with confidence. Your audience will believe in your ability and knowledge. Find points or people in the audience to look at during the speech. Looking to a friendly face can be encouraging. Consider using a podium as a grounding tool, or incorporate visual aids that take the audience's otherwise undivided attention away from you. Research shows that speakers who use visual aids report lower levels of anxiety than those who do not. Why is this important? If speech anxiety is left unmanaged, it can lead to reduction of the speaker's credibility, loss of opportunity, or in a worst-case scenario, the speaker feeling completely overwhelmed, shutting down, and missing the presentation altogether. When speech anxiety is properly managed, effective speaking is made possible. Effective public speaking has implications for academic, professional, and personal success, and can lead to improved overall confidence, increased networking opportunities, improved critical thinking skills, and overall, better communication skills.
So there you go. What were some of the things you learned here? What were some of the things that you learned that maybe you didn't know before? Some of the things that she talked about. Can you name a few? Because those are the things that help you to overcome anxiety. The best way to overcome anxiety is through preparation. Prepare, prepare, prepare. What you're seeing in this picture, exercise before the speech. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Mary. Exercise before the speech. What else? You'll see in this picture where I am presenting at a national conference, you'll notice that there is my face, a big slide, just like I have here today. Practice to overcome fear. Thank you so much. And use presentation aids like I'm using today and like you see in this picture. What happens is when you use presentation aids, your audience is paying attention to the aids and not so much on you. But as long as those presentation aids, your PowerPoint, your Google Slides, they need to be well done, crisp, clean. They need to represent what you're talking about. But once you use them well, then that nervousness that you feel can be taken the onus can be taken a little bit off of you and put onto the presentation aids. So use them wisely and use them well. Now, here's the thing. I want to get these controls and all this stuff off of my screen. Sorry. So you saw in the video how to overcome fear. And I want to tell you a little bit about what you see in this picture. This was a presentation that I debated on doing. It was a presentation that I did at a national conference here in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. And it's a conference that I have presented at for many years. Now, why am I telling you this and then I'm talking about fear? Because for this particular time, I was fearful. I was fearful because we were still in COVID. And I was fearful because after having been home for a number of years in COVID, I actually did home teaching from the time that COVID began until the time that it finished. So I was home probably about 1.5 years. And so that fear factor was real, even though I have presented at many conferences for many years. The fear was still real for me. So I had to do some talking to myself and change my mindset. And what that meant is you got to say to yourself, I can do this. What are you fearful about? What is the problem here? And address it. You must change your mindset from that fixed, oh my gosh, the audience, I don't know, I'm fearful about, COVID, I'm fearful about many things. But if you're going to give a good speech, a powerful speech, you've got to change your mindset. And what that means is that you prepare. You do your research. You ensure that what you're talking about is precisely what you think your audience wants to hear. And then when you're getting ready to do the speech and you feel that pent-up nervousness inside of you, do those breathing exercises that she discussed in the video. What that means, ladies and gentlemen, is you take deep cleansing breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth, at least 10 or 12 times, deep breathing, while allowing your mindset to say, I can do this. I can do this. And so if the thoughts are saying, I can't, open your mouth and say, I can. I can, I will, I'm prepared, I'm well able. But you better be prepared and you better care about the topic. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Anyway, this was a national conference in March of 2022, and we were just coming out of COVID. And I went into that room, and after I gave that speech, there was such a sense of euphoria, such a sense of, wow, I did this and it was awesome. And so every single time you feel fear, you've got to overcome it by changing your mindset, speaking out of your mouth what to dispel the thoughts that are in your head. Does that make sense, guys? So change your mindset. Instead of saying, I can't, you have to say, I can, I will, and I want to. Because if you don't want to, it won't go well for you. I can promise you that. So open your mind, open yourself, and become the best version of yourself. Because if you have something to say, like I absolutely have a passion for soft skills, especially public speaking, critical thinking, time management, anything that can enhance you professionally and personally. I really want to help people to do that, but you have to want to do it too. Because if your brain is continually saying, I can't, I can't, I can't, there is nothing that anyone can do for you. Because you know the old adage, the old saying, you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. Now, before I get to talking about introversion, is there anything that I've talked about so far that needs clarification? You can put it in the chat. If there's anything that I've spoken about that you need clarification for, it's a little muddy, you didn't get it, anything at all, please don't be shy to put it in the chat. Anybody? Are we good?
Dr. Hargett, I guess my question is, how did you, like in the midst of the presentation that you had, were there moments that you still felt nervous when you were giving the presentation, and how did you overcome that in the midst of the presentation?
To be frank, when I walked in the room and I set up the presentation and folks started to walk in, what I willed myself to do is greet them one by one when they walked in the room. And that dispelled everything. Once I had made, and then there was one lady who was very outgoing, and I could tell that she was the person that I could always rely on if I needed that, that person to respond and nobody else was responding. I knew that that one lady would. That dispelled right there. Because remember, I've done it for years. So it's like riding a bicycle, you get back on. Mm-hmm. But yes, that fear was real. And I want to tell you that if I hadn't probably overcome it, mm-hmm. It might have been difficult for me to go back out there as much as I have. And now I have I have fear. Even today, speaking to this wonderful audience, you have butterflies. Yes. Because if you don't have butterflies, then you honestly don't care about your topic, or you don't care about your audience.
Right.
When you have butterflies, it tells you that you care. So to answer your question, and thank you for the question, once I interacted with that audience And I asked the audience, like I asked the audience here, this beautiful audience from all over the globe. I mean, I'm so happy to be presenting to you all today. But I asked them where they were from, and I did ask them what they wanted to get out of the workshop. And then I was able to feel comfortable about sharing and really pivoting the speech to ensure that I was giving them what they wanted to get out of the workshop.
Got it.
And then it was all over, and it was wonderful. It was beautiful. You know, I always say a good speech is like a beautiful poem. It really is. And so Mary says, does this speaking positively, for example, can it be the same as speaking positively to the subconscious mind? What do you say, Deborah?
You know what? I'd love to get some clarification from Mary so that we ensure that we're answering her question. What do you mean, Mary? Can you clarify that a little?
And if you want to, Mary, you can open your mic, but if not, then you can certainly just put it in the chat.
And I guess while Mary is doing that, you know, Dr. Hargret talked really skillfully about this issue of mindset. You have to believe that you can. You have to have the narrative in your brain has to be stuff that's building you up, that's boosting your confidence, because the person that you believe the most, no matter what anybody else tells you in the world, the person you are most likely to believe is yourself. And if what you're telling yourself is that I can't do this, this is not me, this is too much for me, I'm gonna fail, then you will. That's the sad truth. But if you begin to change that narrative and start telling yourself that I am capable of doing this, even though I might be afraid, a popular Toastmasters thing is, I can cause these butterflies to fly straight. Even if the butterflies are still there, I can cause them to fly straight. So it's important that what you are saying to yourself are things that are positive and that build you up and that build confidence, because the person that you will believe above anybody else is you.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm hoping that helps with that question a little bit, Mary. You know, as far as the subconscious mind responds to repetition. So if you keep repeating the same negative thing to yourself over and over again, after a while that goes down into your subconscious, and whenever you approach a certain situation, that fear programming will kick up. So you have to start repeating positive things to yourself. Dr. Hargret.
Absolutely, 100%. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yes. I do a lot with growth and fixed mindset. And if that's something that you'd like a separate workshop on, certainly at the end of this presentation, we ask you for a survey. And if that's something that you'd like us to do a webinar on, we can certainly do that. That's Carol Dweck and what is the young lady's name out of Harvard? Duckworth, Angela Duckworth. She is the she advanced the whole thing on growth versus fixed mindset. Carol Dweck's book and Angela Duckworth's research on the growth versus the fixed mindset is something that we could talk about more in depth, because if you think you can, and I think that's going to be on my next slide, you will. And if you think you can't, you won't. That's a quote by Linda Ward. And she was a woman that was badly abused in her youth. And she went on, because of her positive mindset, to become a millionaire, motivational speaker, writer, just because she did not let the negativity defeat her. And there's a lot about the brain that says, if you keep on having negative thoughts, then those brain waves cause you to become a negative person. You can change that by changing the messages that you say to yourself. Instead of saying, I can't, you say, I can, but you got to believe it. You can't just say it. You must believe it. And if you say it often enough and you believe it often enough, it changes your mindset. So now, if there's nothing else you'd like to talk about there, and thank you, Mary, and thank you, Deborah, and others, I'd like to move on to introversion. Any introverts? First of all, let me give you the definition. And then I'm going to ask you to put in the chat. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? So what is introversion? I'm just giving you the definition so that you can understand how I perceive introversion. So an introvert feels more comfortable on focusing on their inner thoughts and ideas rather than what's happening externally. They enjoy spending time with just one or two people rather than large groups or crowds. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Put it in the chat. Thank you, Raisa. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Thank you, Anson. Mary, thank you. Kyle, thank you. Catherine, thank you. Wow. Isn't that something? And what do you think? Do you think I'm an introvert or an extrovert? Well, I'm an introvert too. And it takes a lot of energy sometimes for me to do things like I'm doing today. But I believe that it is a calling for me. And if you have something to say, if you have a speech that you need to give, if you've been offered an opportunity in a company where you feel like you want to be a part of an organization and you have to give speeches and you're an introvert, you are going to have to push yourself more than extroverts do. You're going to have to change your mindset more than extroverts do. And you're going to have to understand that as an introvert, when you do things like public speaking, once you're finished with the speech, your energy is going to be depleted. And that's going to be okay. What that means is you're going to need to go by yourself or in a small group of people to rejuvenate, because if you're an introvert and you do a speech and the larger the audience, the more energy it takes. So as an introvert, you have to understand that it takes a lot of your personal energy to do a speech, but do it anyway. I find introverts have a lot to say. Many of them don't say it, but they have a lot of good things to say. Can you become an effective public speaker? Put it in the chat. What do you think? After listening to everything that I've said so far, can you become an effective public speaker? Even though you're introverted, can you, do you think? Absolutely, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I love that. Ah, yes, yes, yes. Oh, I love how Ghanaians and Nigerians talk, you know. I love the O. I watch a lot of Ghanaian. I watch Wadamaya, for those of you who know Wadamaya from Ghana, and I watch a lot of other African YouTubers from the continent, from the African continent. Yes, I can. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. That's what I want to hear. And it takes work. It takes guidance, guys. Introverts possess powerful insights to share. Yes, thank you, Mary. Excellent. You can become an effective public speaker. But you have to know that you can do it. Now, how do you do it though? How do you craft the perfect speech? Is there such a thing as a perfect speech? What do you think? Can you have a perfect speech? Let me tell you this, 10 minutes before I came onto the Zoom, my audio wasn't working. And I panicked like crazy. My son is on, and he was like, don't panic, just show me and I'll help you. But I panicked. And so understand that when you're going to give a speech, things may go wrong. Things may go wrong. It's okay. It's okay. Allow yourself to understand that there's no perfect speech, guys. No perfect speech. But to do a really good speech, you've got to think about who is your audience. And when you signed up for this webinar, I took a good look to see who you were or where you were from. If you said that in your email or reported that, Deborah asked you to report that at the beginning, because it's important that we know who our audience is and that we speak to that audience like I'm speaking to you today. And I hope that I am speaking to you, that I'm addressing what you want to hear for this webinar. That's very important to me. You first, whenever you're crafting a speech, you got to know who your audience is. My audience today are people who want to know about how to become a more effective public speaker. That's who my audience is. And so you don't just do a generic one-size-fits-all speech. You make sure to craft your speech to suit the audience that you're going to be speaking to. Does that make sense? Next, you got to discern and know the difference between an informative and a persuasive speech. It's different. And if you're trying to persuade an audience that needs to only be informed, you are going to upset the audience. They're going to think to themselves, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to learn about something, and you're trying to sell me something. But if you're there to persuade, you still need to know who your audience is. Is your audience made up of people who they're lukewarm? They could go either way about your product or your service. Or is your audience cold, and it's going to take a lot of persuasion to get them to buy or to understand what you're telling them? Or are they in between? It's important that you understand the type of speech that you're giving and who your audience is, so you know how to appeal to that audience. If not, you are giving a generic speech that may not appeal, and your audience might think to themselves, I mean, this speech is okay, but really it's not there. It's not helping me, because you didn't take the time to understand what type of speech are you giving and to whom are you giving it. And so it's important for you to understand. Now, there are other types of speeches. There's an informative, a persuasive, there's an impromptu speech, and then there's a speech for special occasions. But we're going to talk about just the informative and the persuasive, because those are the two major speeches that you're going to be given. And so what do you do when your audience doesn't give you positive feedback when addressing them publicly? It's tough, because there are times that you are going to have to talk about tough things. If you know that your audience, it's going to be a hard sell, understand that and we can talk about persuasion, because there are models to persuasion. When you're trying to persuade a cold audience, and generally speaking, if your audience doesn't give you positive feedback, it's a cold audience. And what a cold audience means is that you don't know them, they don't know you, they don't necessarily agree. They may be there because they've been forced to. Whatever the thing is, understand that in that case, you're not trying to twist their arm to get them to do what you want them to do. You're trying to plant a little kernel, something in their mind that at maybe some later date, they'll think about what you've said, and they may think, or they may doubt a little bit in the future what their original thoughts were. So if that's the case, understand, if you're addressing an audience that may not give you positive feedback, understand that that's who your audience is going to be. Respectfully agree to disagree. Make sure you're respectful of their personal point of view, and give them your best pitch and leave it alone. Because if your audience is opposed, it's very, very difficult, virtually impossible to convince them immediately. It takes a little bit and a little bit more over time and over time for them to realize that you are now a credible person, for them to listen to you. It takes time to build that credibility. Does that make sense? Did that help with the answer? Did that help?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. The one thing I would say is, do not try to convince them if they're already opposed. And when I say try to convince them, certainly give them the speech that you meant to give them. But don't keep on arguing, going back and forth. Make sure that they realize that you respect their point of view, because it's respect for opposing points of view that gives you the credibility to come back to them at a later date. If you've argued with them, if you appear upset, if you appear frustrated, they're not going to think of you as a credible person. You may follow up with an email after that, follow up with another meeting, but you leave it alone, and you know how it is, you retrench to fight the battle again at a later date. So it's important then to realize that if you're doing an informative speech, you're not there to persuade them. If you're hired by a cell phone company to tell your audience about the cell phone features only, you're not there to convince them to buy the phone. Just tell them about the features. That's informative. But if you are there to persuade them to buy the newest version of your phone, that's persuasion. That's the difference between an informative speech and a persuasive speech. Hopefully that made sense. Now, we talked about fear, we talked about anxiety, and we talked about understanding about giving the speech, whether it's informative or persuasive, and that you should understand that your audience is the most important thing. It's time for questions, guys. Please don't hesitate to either open your mic or put questions in the chat. I'd love to hear from you.
You know, one of the things that's great about this intimate audience is that this can be, in essence, your workshop where you don't have to feel afraid to ask any questions, just like Dr. Hargret says, that you have our undivided attention. Okay, Kyle, thank you for that question.
So can public speaking skills help in any profession?
Oh, huge.
Unequivocally, yes. First of all, in order to get the job, you have to present yourself well. And so it's important to understand that loads of people are going to be going for most of the positions. It's the way you come across. It's the way you present yourself. It's the way your employer, your prospective employer, perceives you understanding the job. That's doing your research. Speaking to them about the company, which is going to make them feel good because they know that you've done your research. And whether you are working in a restaurant as a server, or you may be working as a teacher, a lawyer, whatever your profession is, when you present yourself well, you are going to get the promotion. You are going to get the job. You are going to get the accolades because people enjoy a person that knows how to present themselves well. And introverts, sometimes it's difficult for us to do that. We have to learn to make sure that our face doesn't look like we're introverted. Our body language doesn't look like we're introverted. We tend to look more serious. We tend to look unapproachable. It's very difficult. And we can talk about this in another session because I want to respect your time. But when it comes to introversion, a lot of times, because of being an introvert, you put up that barrier and it shows many times, and you may not get the job, and you may be the most qualified. You may not get the promotion, even though you did the work. But that means that you've got to work that little bit harder to become an effective public speaker. Thank you so much for that question. And the next question is, what do you do when you hear bad news just before? Oh, that's a good question.
Yes, it is.
That's a tough question. I've been there. Have you been there, Deborah?
No, something might have happened, but not bad news. So I can't speak to it.
I've been there. I've been there. It's difficult. It's difficult because if the news is bad enough, you just want to, especially if you're an introvert, you just want to go home and curl up into a very small ball and just not deal with people. But if it's an important thing, then you have to push on through the pain. Just like you push on through the anxiety that you're feeling, you push on through the fear, you put your game face on and you go in there. And if you've practiced enough, and if you care enough about the topic, and if you care about your audience, you're going to do a good job anyway. So put that game face on and do what you got to do. All right, thank you. There was another question. Let's see.
There was.
Let's see. I'm not sure.
Bad news. What is the role of communication skills in public speaking?
Well, communication skills and public speaking go hand in hand.
Right.
You can't have one without the other. It's a part of the communication process. Communication is verbal and nonverbal. The verbal is the public speaking, and the nonverbal is the way that you present yourself in terms of your body language, your tone, the way that you look. In fact, it's even your attire. It's the way you dress. And, you know, we can certainly talk about this in another webinar, but all of that encompasses communication skills. So I hope I answered that question. Why do some of us feel really tensed speaking in
public? Mm-hmm.
While some just do it effortlessly, even without training, like they were born with it? Well, this is the difference between the introvert and the extrovert, generally speaking. Now, extroverts can also have speech anxiety, make no mistake. So I'm not just stereotyping introverts, but honestly, for the most part, the introversion is what makes you feel tense. If you remember the definition that I gave you about introversion, that you prefer to be in a small group of 2 or 3 people, larger crowds intimidate introverts. And the larger the introversion, or the more introverted you are, the more intimidated and tensed and nervous you get. Because when you see big crowds, your energy is affected. And we can talk about, you're going to get a free gift at the end of this session. And it's all about speech anxiety and the difference between introversion and extroversion. And it's going to be about, it's a course, it's a mini course that I'm giving you for free. And it talks about speech anxiety and how it affects introverts differently than in extroverts. But speaking from my own self, I can tell you unequivocally that you tense up because you are going to be giving yourself to a large audience. Your energy is affected, and it feels like something is being taken from you. And so in the opposite of that is the extrovert. The extrovert has never met a stranger. The higher the extroversion, the more that's the case. My husband is an extrovert. He'll meet somebody, 5 minutes later, he'll say to me, "It's my friend, Deborah." And I'm like, "Your friend? You met him 5 minutes ago." He's never met a stranger, and that's the truth. And so for him, people are interesting and exciting, and he can go and talk to them, and he talks to strangers, and he can get up and talk and joke and laugh. And I'm sitting there like, can we go home yet? You know, I've had enough. And so this is the difference. And I hope that I answered that question for you.
All right, we have one last question in the chat, and I know that we are 3 minutes on. So how can I help my children be better than me at public speaking? Thank you so much for that question. And we'll end with that question so that we can respect your time. Go ahead.
You honestly have to get them in public speaking situations from the time that they're young. You cannot expect that if they haven't been in public speaking situations, that by the time they're grown, they're just going to be absolutely comfortable. And this goes for whether they're an introvert or an extrovert. Extroverts tend to jump into public speaking, and they don't necessarily prepare. And so if you have an extroverted child, they need that structure to be taught and trained from an early age. So there are organizations like mine. There are public speaking organizations for young people. Whether it's a club, a church, or another organization, have them as much as possible be out there, put them out there now, don't push them out there, but help them as much as possible to understand that it's okay to get up. And maybe in family situations, maybe if it's a birthday party or a wedding, you might have them get up and say a few words. The more they do that, the less likely they are to fear public speaking as they grow. Does that make sense?
Excellent. All right, Dr. Hargett, I want us to make sure that we get a chance to share the free gift that you spoke about earlier, and another opportunity for folks to learn even more about public speaking at a really discounted price for a very short period of time. So I want to drop this in the chat right now and just share with our audience that if you found today's talk or today's session really helpful, you're really going to be excited about this online course, this free gift really that you have that's coming up. Let's see, the free course talks a little bit about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Hargett, about handling anxiety. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. That is correct.
So that is in the chat, and you will get an email with that information so that you can use this content not only with yourself, but with your friends, family, and kids to figure out what's the best way to handle anxiety. And then I also want to share an online course that Dr. Hargett and CDH Education has produced, and it's called How to Become, in essence, an Effective Public Speaker. There are a few modules that we want to share with you that will be covered so that you know that this is the right course for you. Dr. Hargett, do you have that slide up?
Yes, let me do that.
Absolutely.
And she says the course enrollment is closed. So as soon as this webinar is over, I'll go in and make sure that it's open. But once this webinar is over, you will get another email from me with all the details that are being shared here, the free course, and the opportunity to take the course that we're going to be talking to you about here. And it's at a very low cost, discounted to this audience. Now, the truth of the matter is whether you purchase the course or not, we will continue to do webinars for you. Yes. We'll give you content. We'll give you other things to help you along. And you've joined our family. We're here, obviously, to give you a public speaking course, but we're also here, both Deborah and I, we care very much about helping you along your journey.
Yes.
And so you will continue to get through email from us videos, free workbooks, free course offers, low price course offers that you will be able to take advantage of. And these are pretty high quality stuff that you'll find that is probably, I mean, we have it on for $19.99. You are going to get it for $9.99. But generally speaking, on Udemy and on Skillshare, this course would be a $49.99 price, easily. But for me, my heart is to give to folks who would not necessarily be able to afford even the $49.99 price, and that's in American dollars. So the $9.99 price is there for you, but we're also giving you a free course. And stay tuned, because we're going to have more webinars. But here is the How to Become Effective Public Speaker, the topics from that course. And this is the course menu for you at a glance. And so I'll be making sure that that course is open after we finished with the webinar.
Absolutely. So you will see topics such as what's the purpose of a speech, how to organize your speech, understanding the types of speech presentations, how to win your audience, which definitely was the subject of a few questions today. So we want you to take advantage of that. Again, that discounted price of $9.99 will be good for 7 days. So we want you to take advantage of that now, because after that it reverts to still a very, very reasonable price of $19.99. But you are basically getting content from an educator, someone who has been in this field, giving classes and webinars and presentations on public speaking for decades. So we want you to take advantage of that. And as you've heard, she's excited to be able to bring this at a price point where as many people as possible can benefit from this. With that, I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of today's webinar on behalf of CDH Education. We hope that you are leaving with wonderful morsels about how you can become an even more effective public speaker and share your story with the world. Dr. Hargrett, any closing words?
Well, I just want to thank you so much for giving us your time. You are a busy lady and you have been just invaluable here. So I personally want to thank you. I also would ask you, I'm going to put in, I just put the free course in the chat again, and I'm going to ask you guys to fill out a quick survey. It's just about, let me see, this is not the survey, just about 5 questions, but I do want to hear from you, for you to tell me, was this good? I mean, is this something that you want to, that you found value in? So let me just find that link quickly.
Right. And while she's looking for that, here's the thing. The more feedback that you provide, the more we're able, where CDH Education is able to create content that is tailored specifically for you. So please take the time to sit down and to take the 5 minutes to complete the survey. Tell us what you loved about today's presentation. Tell us more about what you would like to hear. And again, you can find out more about upcoming programs by going to cdheducationinc.org. And of course, you can find content also on Udemy, Teachable, because it's really about providing that value to you and helping to make you powerful speakers in the world to share your story with content.